All right, the next section we're going to do, the last section here on India, we're going to call Keeping Indian Culture Alive. And in India, this is going to be more relevant than in other colonies. If you remember, right, the scramble for Africa happens about 1880. World War I happens in 1914. World War One dramatically changes the world. Okay, that's only 20, 30 years, 35 years, I apologize, of European control over much of Africa. Okay, yeah, that's not cool, right? They also took over Southeast Africa in that same basic time period, maybe a little longer, 50 years of control over Southeast Asia, right? But this isn't long enough for an area to lose its culture. If we remember, England had trading posts in India in the 1600s. They controlled most of the coastal trade all by 1750. And by 1900, by the time period we're talking about, a lot of Indians felt like they had started losing their culture. That the English culture was dominant, that a large majority of Indians spoke English, not traditional languages of India, maybe Sanskrit, or Islamic, or Arabic, I'm sorry. Well, Arabic would be maybe incorrect, no. Maybe that would be Farsi in the area of modern day Pakistan. I'm not sure. But anyways, the point being that English became a more dominant language. The English culture became very popular. The English were glamorized in English society, and Indian culture was kind of diminished to the point where, we're talking about 200, 300 years since European involvement in India. Many Indians felt like Indian culture was dying. In a way we didn't see in the other colonies because they hadn't been dominated for so long. So in the mid 1800s, we start to see a movement in India to revitalize traditional Indian culture, not just the religions of Hindu and Islam, which do live through these periods, but the language, but the traditional art styles. And we're going to see that Indian language newspapers start to pop up all around the cities. And they don't focus on world news or Eurocentric news. They focus on India news, on news about things that took place in their country. They're written in native languages of Sanskrit, of I don't know, any other Indian, maybe Sanskrit. But it's a way to revitalize and try and keep their culture alive that had been tamped down on for hundreds of years and was really starting to be taken over by an English culture. This man here, and I apologize in advance, I can't say his name, Rabindranath Tagore, was a famous Indian writer, poet, and spiritual leader. He preached human dignity. He preached world peace. And then there's a quote that the book gave that I really liked. It's a quote about nationalism. Again, nationalism is this intense national pride. And he says, I'm going to read it. He says, it is my conviction that my countrymen will truly gain their India by fighting against the education that teaches them that country is greater than the ideals of humanity, right? So he's saying, if you want to get India back, we have to reject nationalism. We have to reject the education that we're learning in their schools that tells them that national pride, that doing what's right for your country is more important than doing what's right for humanity as a whole. I try hard not to make too much connections to the modern day. Because, we talk about history, it's hard to really understand 20, 50 years after it happened. But when a really rich country, let's call this country Country A. When Country A, who's really crazy rich already, okay, decides that they're going to stop doing things to help countries B, C, and D, who are poor countries, to enrich themselves even further although they're already a really rich country, um, it actually weakens them in the long run. Um, or Tagore would suggest um, that doing what's right for humanity, which would be then maybe helping out countries B, C, and D, helping out the poorer countries, maybe countries there's violence within that country, right? And maybe helping, I don't know, refugees from those countries who come to their borders. Um, Helping those people actually will strengthen country A more than rejecting those people, hurting those people, doing awful things to those people because I don't care about you, you're not from country A, kind of thing. And again, that's not, it may not be the perfect analogy, but it's taking Tagore's words and maybe trying to put it into a modern language that